Welcome to Unapologetically Yours, a podcast where we go deep on everything from spirituality to relationships and connection to business and belief systems. Because in a world where we've been taught to play by the rules, it's time to live unapologetically. Welcome to the latest episode of the Unapologetically Yours podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Logan, and I am so happy to be here today with the legendary sisters of the Sister Project. We have Michelle Anderson and Lauren Massarella.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Hi, thanks for being here.
Thrilled to be here in your gorgeous setting and set. This is amazing. And congratulations to your podcast.
Thank you so much. You guys are an inspiration. And every time I tune in to your show, I feel like I'm sitting with you guys in conversation. I'm in full laughter all the time. And I just love your style so much and love you both individually. So Tell us a little bit about...
Mutual.
Thank you. Tell me a little bit about the Sister Project.
Like way back when, or where we are now? Where do you want to start? Okay.
Yeah, now.
Oh, well, I'm really sisters with her. I feel like that's a main thing. People are like, are you guys really sisters? Yeah, we called ourselves the Sister Project because we came out of the same canal.
That's true.
And after lots of blogging and doing those things, Lauren and I said, let's create a podcast. So we created Cozy Conversations with the Sister Project, which is a platform that was really born out of our own burnout and experience and this like need to share and teach and inspire people to slow down more, care less, and do more of nothing.
Mm-hmm. Which gives people anxiety when they hear those things. Do more of nothing. Fuck.
Do more of nothing. Oh,
I can't do that.
what's that like?
It's fabulous.
Yeah.
But it's hard.
So you guys, it was birthed out of a place of burnout. How did you guys recognize this need for like a creative outlet?
I think that it was also birthed out of the pandemic. We were also separated, which we spent like every day together in person very often. And once we became separated by law, we were like, fuck it, let's start a podcast to encourage the kind of conversation that we had with one another on a regular basis. And then over time, we started to recognize that we needed to do that trifecta of things, was slow down, care a little less, do a little bit more of nothing. I think just as individuals, we recognized that kind of rat race, that nonstop life. She was a mom before me. Now being a mom, I really resonate with our own messaging even more so. Because when you don't have kids, you can do a lot of listeners out there who don't have kids enjoy it because and think hard if you really want to, because there's so much time to do nothing, to relax, to care less. And then of course with our mom was sick back in like the mid 2000s with dementia, and Michelle was like the number one caregiver, kind of like the house manager, the eldest daughter. I think we really realized caring for an aging loved one, a sick loved one, it took a lot of emotional energy, especially being business owners. And we were both working other jobs, being a mom, just trying to be a person. And that's when we really kind of realized, okay, there's something has to be done for ourselves, and also we can begin to use our platform to inspire others to like really like pull back a little bit.
Right.
We are just always nonstop, I think, as human beings, and it's just a culture that I think we live in to be nonstop. I feel like you can totally relate. I mean, I was listening to your podcast yesterday, and I feel like you relate. And so it's one of those things where we have been told, I think, our whole lives to go, 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 and that we're at an age and a place in our lives where we can actually pump the brakes on that concept.
Yeah, to have a little bit of agency around like
a little bit
and intentionality.
Yep.
And I like what you said about like the whole person, like all of the expectations that we have, especially as caregivers. And Michelle, I know you experienced that, like the epitome of the sandwich generation when you're caring for your mom while you have young kids, and then there's not really space for you as the woman anymore. And the only way to show up as your full self is to create that space so you can be.
Yeah. And that's what we did. And I think you and I resonated with a ton of stuff that you were sharing in one of your episodes, just about that feeling of that. I always refer to that time when I had no space and I was caring for everybody else and putting everybody else before myself. I felt hate, anger, and resentment were like those are like the headlining feelings. And when I started adding up the time that I was doing for everybody else and seeing the minuscule sliver of time or no time that I was doing for myself, it was like something's got to give. So I had to relearn a lot of things. She had to kind of smack me into submission and tell the story.
Yeah, how did that
one
look?
of the things I'm thinking about is I'm also a yoga teacher, so I have that in my blood to find those moments of slowness. It's part of who I am, and if I don't get them, I can feel it. And I remember taking a yoga class with Michelle, and she had her fucking phone like front and center of her mat checking it. And I'm like, this is not how you can't practice yoga like this. You can't have any moment of peace if you're attached to like a phone, a device where you have to respond immediately. And I can't remember if mom was still sick or not. So I did understand the need to be available, but we have to make ourselves still available by maybe passing that message to someone like, hey, husband, partner, whatever, sister, I'm going to take a yoga class. I'm out for an hour. I'm forwarding the main caregiver of mom to you for the next hour.
Yeah.
And make those arrangements so that you can actually chill. But you are doing so much. Now Michelle, I feel like, and now I'm learning from her.
I'm a different person.
I think that is so cool because it's like you went through this experience and then you had Lauren who's kind of nurturing you through it. And then now Lauren has become a mother and you get to nurture her.
But Lauren she has from the beginning prioritized herself, and she has used her voice and communicated with her partner and people when she needs help or when she's taking a beat to do her own thing. And I admire that in her because she is ahead of the game. She was for me, and I think that she's ahead of the game with a lot of moms, at least, it took me a minute to figure out that was something that I could do. Like I was like, oh, hang on a second. I can take a walk in the middle of my workday. Wait, hang on a second. I can eat my lunch sitting down and not in a race to get back to. I didn't know that those were things that were even possible. So now I feel like I'm walking around on easy street. I'm just like, and it's not easy. It's hard as hell.
Yeah.
But the hard things are a heck of a lot easier when you create the space for yourself. I think that's the trick.
The hard things are a lot easier when you create the space for yourself.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Because then I'm not flipping out. I mean, we've seen each other in our darkest hours. She's certainly seen me when I had zero. I was reactive, like gone off the deep end. And I think that was a direct result of me not prioritizing and also not like honing and using skills that were there. I just didn't know that I had them or could use them or how to do it or whatever.
Let's break that down a little bit because I'm curious to hear, like, what did it look like going off the deep end? What changes did you have to make? And how have these changes impacted your relationships now, both like in your partnership and with your kids and the people around you?
What it looked like going off the deep end for me was a story that I share all of the time, was driving from A to B and not knowing how I was getting there, not recognizing my path on the road, like literally leaving a house and going to, let's say, yoga, for example. And I'd get there and be like, I don't even remember if I stopped at a red light. I don't even remember what path I took to get there. Fast forward to me going into a yoga class. I had driven my husband's car one day. This was like a rock bottom moment for me. And I came out and I couldn't find my car. Well, I couldn't find my husband's car. I had forgotten that I had driven his car. I was looking for my car.
But then you called the police.
I called the police and I filed my car in stolen. Go ahead. It's hysterical. We laugh. He came. I filed my car missing in front of my husband's car. And when I realized what I had done, I started sobbing and snotting into his badge. He had no idea what he was going to deal with that day. And I was like, I am so sorry. My mom is so sick and clearly I'm not well and I need to go work on some things. And from there, it was a slow process of making some changes, but also sloughing off. I was coaching soccer teams and doing all of this shit. And I'm like, My therapist who held my hand through a lot of stuff was like, you got to cut some fat. Like, how are you going to do? So that was the first thing, kind of figuring out how I was going to make some adjustments in my life that would lend itself to me being able to feel like I had some agency again.
The important thing to note here is that this can happen not just when you have a sick mom.
No.
It could happen to anybody at any point.
It's all of us. It's so, especially I think that like sector of working mothers, and in that state of just total burnout, you don't know how you're getting from from point A to point B. You don't necessarily know why you're signing up or doing these other things, and without creating that space for the intentionality, then you just end up crying in an officer's
Sobbing into a
arms
stranger's
in front
arms.
of your husband's stolen car,
And then driving home with the keys that were in my pocket. Who knew? Rough times. It was rough.
So then what changes did you make? So you started to
I made
cut the fat.
I made some massive shifts. I made some major shifts professionally in my life. I had the first 10 years, I worked for 20 years for my dad, and I still am very loosely attached to that business in a very small way. So that's the first big change. Before COVID hit, I was like, I'm gonna not be here every day anymore because I can't do this anymore. At the 10-year mark of my 20-year experience, I was like, something doesn't feel right. Why do I feel so angry? Why does every moment from coming home from work to putting my kids to bed feel like I am literally trudging through the mud every minute of the day?
That blows.
When somebody would ask me for something, I would go into fight or flight. I don't remember the first 10 years of my kids' experience really in full detail because I was, I think, in fight or flight for the majority of the time. So when I decided that I was going to make some major professional changes and my sister and I were going to pursue the sister project and give that a go fully, it also had been a time when COVID hit. And it was like the most fucked up, best accident that ever happened to me because it was a nightmare in the beginning, working at home. We had big plans. We were like, we're going to do the sister project. We're going fucking full time.
Isn't that funny how those plans always
And then all of
work
a
out?
sudden I was like, how am I going to, my kid's sitting behind a screen and there was like the teacher aspect. I wasn't teaching, but that whole thing where the kids were home, the husband was home, everybody was home. So that caused a little bit of a rift, but what it did in the big picture was teach me and everybody around the world, like, I think what really mattered, and I think what that was entirely was people's time and intentionality behind it was what I had regained. And I was angling to do it. That was where I was headed, was trying to figure out how I could restructure my life. But then this thing came and kind of forced us all to sit back and say, now we're all like, no, we're not going to go back to the old ways. I'm not going to live my life. I'm going to live my life the way I want to live my life, not the way the man or the original setup was going to be. And so that was the biggest change for me. Still working on making a full change there. But I can tell you that as a person and myself, I am a completely different person that I was. And it was making major steps in that department. And now we get to like kind of inspire people to inspire people to make the change, do the things, say no, care less. No one's going to die if you don't get that thing done. No one's going to die. What's most important to you?
I just went through my to-do list and was like, who's going to die if I don't?
Seriously. Did you come up with anyone? We might kill someone, but they're not going to die.
I got to think a little harder. I'm sure there's something
that might
kids are
happen.
little, like, yeah, but
Totally.
But yeah. So how about you, Lauren?
Well, I find that, like I have joked around before, for 41 years, life was pretty leisurely for me because I chose not to have a kid and then I couldn't get pregnant. So those years added on a little bit. And I think now in my present days, when I find myself, my mental health start to slip a little bit is when I know I need to really think about my priorities and how I manage my days. I'm going back to therapy. I'm currently interviewing therapists, which is a really fun thing to do. We talked about it yesterday in the podcast. Interviewing a therapist is like interviewing your new confidant. Like, who are you going to be spending an hour with every week. So I've been having a good time doing that, surprisingly. When I find that I am slipping there, because what happens is, full disclosure, I suffer from health anxiety, and that interrupts a lot of my work. It interrupts conversations, my thoughts, my own mental health, and I ruminate and I share these different things or symptoms that I find, and I notice I share them with people. Like, I have an echo chamber, and I find that this kind of plays a role in how I function daily. So I'm at a point now where I'm implementing a lot of my own messaging and thoughts, and the way I usually live my life which is like slowing down a little bit and giving myself some grace and not always catastrophizing and being kind to myself, and also prioritizing things. Like, I had to take half of my work day last week to work on my therapy and find these therapists instead of taking those 3 hours to do everything else in life, because my thought is, if I don't tend to that now, it's gonna fuck up my work in the long run anyways. So I might as well just take those hours and do that, and not beat myself up for, taking a couple hours off to focus on my mental health. So things like that. And I like to share these thoughts about what I'm go through about health anxiety, because I think that's kind of a really normal thing that a lot of women experience, and sometimes a lot after birth as well. After having a child, you have thoughts of what ifs, and it can be really overwhelming.
So is health anxiety where, like, you experience a pain or symptom in your body and then you automatically think
lucky
you're dying?
You don't experience that,
Yeah,
do you?
it must be
Sounds
a big
like that's
mystery.
a foreign thing for you.
Well, it's exactly that. It's noticing something and then letting it take over my thought process. And I think a lot of what Michelle and I work on and help others with is recognizing when they are overwhelmed, whether it is with your workload or your mental health or with your family or whatever it might be. You have to implement this idea of saying no so that you can say yes to other things. And that might be saying no to everything, so you can just say yes to just being
Only
at
the
home
things that are
and
totally
exactly,
aligned
and that too.
you need.
Yeah, so health anxiety is a real bitch, and I encourage anyone who is suffering from that to get help, because there are amazing therapists out there that will help you with that.
Well, I mean, not to go too down the rabbit hole
Let's
of
do
like
it.
women being taken seriously when they address their needs in the healthcare system.
Actually, it's 100% part of that as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Not knowing when you're going to speak up, if you're going to be taken seriously.
Oh,
so even if it
absolutely.
is an ailment, it's like, well, what are they going to say? How long is it going to take me to get an appointment? How much is this going to cost me? How am I going to have to negotiate this with insurance?
Yeah,
and all
it's
of those
so
things.
much.
There's so much gaslighting in healthcare, and particularly in women's health.
Absolutely.
And also, like, the feeling like you have to bury these feelings to maintain this like level of like strength, and you're not weak and everything's fine and I'm going to keep my chin up. And that's what I love about what you did, is instead of letting it fester and letting it grow and snowball, you're dealing with it.
Yeah, and there are legit things happening, and that's something to consider too, is that I do have like a real issue happening. But what happens is I take that issue that might be just something and I turn it into something bigger and scarier.
Yep.
And full disclosure, our mother suffered from like hypochondria and health anxiety, and I really feel like she gifted me with that, and I'm trying to break that like generational curse so I don't pass that on to my daughter as well, because it's a waste of fucking time. Really, all the worry,
Worrying about anything you can't control.
Exactly.
really hard.
Yes.
So when you start to notice, what are some of the signs that it's time to like zero in on mental health? Like,
Totally.
Like,
Yep.
because if we're not checking in on it, it can go unnoticed. So what are some of the things are signs for you that it's time to like, wait, I need a beat. Got to either go for a walk, do
Totally.
yoga.
When I'm spending too much time in my head. When I'm spending too much time there, hanging out, making up stories, making up conversations, diagnoses. Anytime I'm spending too much time, whether it's health anxiety or even thinking too much about a client. We have one client who I am obsessed with and I love working with them, but I always worry that I don't do enough for them. And so when I'm overthinking that, it's like it's time for me to like be like, oh my God, Lauren, you do so much.
I know.
You
Where
do
does
so
that-
much.
Why do we do that?
I
Like,
don't know.
Why do we think
we don't do enough?
I'm like, because sometimes I'm the person, like, we'll help each other out, where if I feel like she's like struggling or honing in on that space, I'm like, dude, we're good. Like, you're good. Move on from that. But I suffer from the same thing where I'm like, I literally beat myself because I think that I have done nothing of value or nothing at all. And then I look and I'm like,
why do we do that?
What is your problem? You've done
Ashley, do you do that?
Yes. Oh my gosh. All the time. All the
It's
time.
endless.
We are
I know.
masochists.
And I think it really, but for me, I think it's because we don't have that like women's circle to be like, no, like to lift each other up. Like we're all in 28-day cycle or 25, depending on how close you are to menopause.
26, 27 right now. Open the floodgates.
Right. But we're in these cycles and our moods are impacted depending on where we are in the time of the month. And I work with my friend Jess, who's was on podcast talking about human design. And she also was like, when we're making decisions, she's like, are you in your little phase right now when I start being down on myself?
Right.
And she's
Interesting.
like, yeah, she's like, and then I get really hyped about decisions when I'm ovulating and am extra powerful, I feel like, when I'm menstruating and all of these things that like, we're not taking into account where we are in. So like, we're taught to be on a 24-day cycle where it's like you wake up and you are sunshine and you are hungry by noon and it's time
So
for
weird.
bed and life is perfect. But that's not how women work. That's the masculine energy. The feminine is 28 days. So if you're looking at your mental health, if you're looking at how you're showing up in the world in really these like seasons of fall, winter, spring, summer, then it's easier for you to be like, you know what? I'm going inward right now, so I got to get out of my own way. It's time for me to reflect. And so I think that women, ancient times when women were in circle and we knew this about each other, then it was a lot easier to extend the support because we had more visibility into that cycle and how we're showing up. And also just the fact that we live in this very singular society now where we're not always able to go get that daily helping hand. But then you guys are so close, you probably talk 20 times a day.
We do.
But so to have that person, but not everyone has that.
Yeah, I think it's really important to find that person, whether it's a sister, a friend, a therapist, someone who you can share these emotions with, or if you're going through that time of whatever aspect of your life, whether it's perimenopause. I'm a big TikToker. I don't make TikToks, but I love watching it. And we watch a lot of like perimenopausal TikToks. And one woman shared, she's like, one of the top 5 tips she gives to women going through their perimenopausal like symptoms is to have like a circle, to have those friends that you can call and just be like, oh my God, today's really fucking hard. Tell them what's going on, just to be heard. They don't even have to say much back to you. And I feel like we have kind of lost that a little bit. It takes a really big effort. Michelle is a big proponent of spending time with your lady friends and having.
It's huge.
It's huge.
It's mass.
I
It's
think that
healing.
the pandemic kind of like robbed
Took
from us.
away.
Like who was the first person that you cancel on? Like your girlfriends.
Yeah.
Or at least I've noticed this trend. And how far out are we having to book it? And then you cancel and this. And it's one of these things. And I feel like if we start to prioritize this again,
yes,
it can really create a huge shift.
I totally agree. And I say it all the time. Lauren doesn't love this little phrase that I use, but I say girl time is a necessity.
Wait, how do you know I don't like it?
Because you told me once.
Did Maggie tell you?
No,
I told
you
Maggie.
you told me.
I told you.
You're like, I don't love it. And I was like, well, whatever. I mean, that's what I call it. It's okay. We don't have to agree on everything. We're sisters. We fight too.
I really forgot that I told you that.
And no, I'm just announcing it now. Right here.
Surprise.
Well, I'm unapologetically yours, bitch. And you can take it or leave it. And but I say it all the time. And I was just with my girlfriends last week or whatever. We were out and we were together for 3 hours. We howled, we laughed, we cried. We kind of got into it a little. We shared our deepest, darkest, most vulnerable things in the moment. And when we left, we literally stood around each other and we said, thank you so much. I love you so much. I live for these moments. I can wake up tomorrow morning and do my day. And it's like, if more people bought into, and it's the idea of community. You don't have to be a girl. You just have to be a human. And if you seek out those
human
moments,
time is a necessity.
Yeah, human time. Is that okay with you?
I love that.
Okay, we're going to start using that more.
I love that.
Human time. When we need a little more human time.
Well,
we need more human
yes,
time
we
in
do.
a world of
devices.
a wall
It's
in front of our
insane.
face.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so true. And so one of the things is when you think about moms or just being the work structure, all of this is a cycle of go, 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 go.
Yep.
So you don't have that playtime. You don't have that time where you're coming together, where you're not checking your phone, where you're not on duty to recharge, to foster that connection. And it is so important.
Massive.
It is. And I think that that's one of the things that really held me out from having a child for so long is that I had mom friends early on. They became moms much earlier than me, like in our late 20s. And it was, for some of them, I never saw some of them again. I'm so busy now. And I'm like, well, what the fuck's the point of having a kid if you sacrifice everything? And I don't believe in that notion. I know that there are sacrifices to be made when you have a child, but I think it's important that you keep a lot of yourself as well, or discover who this new version of you is post-child. Michelle talks a lot about spending time with girlfriends and like many of them at a time or several of them. I love one-on-one time. And I think if you can even get one friend or one sister, whoever that might be, or a mentor to spend time with them, even if it's once a month, that will make the world of a difference of your quality of life.
Yeah.
It should be a non-negotiable.
It should be a non-negotiable. And people put that off. I mean, I tell you, I have not seen some of my friends for years because they had children. And that's it. I mean, that's literally it. Oh,
But I mean, don't you think that part of that is like the messaging that we're served?
100%. Be a mom. Sacrifice everything.
So like you became a mom later in
Everything.
life. You
Yes.
saw the effect of this. You had more awareness going into it.
Yeah,
So how have you intentionally resisted that messaging?
Well, I don't listen to it because I think it's so much bullshit. It's just so much like what we're supposed to do. You know, I think you can be any version of however you want to be as a mother or a non-mom, whatever it might be. I have friends who have gotten confused that I took a girls' trip. I left my kid and I left the dad to go on a girls' trip. Like they're like, wait, how? You just make it happen. I mean, it's not for everybody, and I know it's hard
Eat my
financially.
dust, liver lips, I'm out of here.
I'm literally like, my girlfriend, I was in the car with a girlfriend once and she was getting in my car. I had not had a child yet. And her son came out running and he was like, Mom. And my friend was like, step on the gas right fucking now. I'm like, are you sure? She's like, go. And I like reversed my car and I sped out of the driveway. She's like, I have to escape. And I looked at that like, you just needed to get the fuck out of your house and you weren't going to let your kid control your next step of the evening. Dad's home. He's fine. The kid's safe. And I think that that's where moms or some mothers might get a little bit like, feel responsible for everything. And we already have
There's
so much
that guilt factor.
Yeah, and I
That's
get
that
that
thing.
too, but the messaging is that we have to reverse the messaging. We have to rewrite the messaging for the mothers to be that are coming after us, because if we just keep telling them, and I'm going to bring it up, but and this might be controversial, but the whole trad wife movement that we're seeing on social media terrifies me, because it's like, open the kitchen door, this is where you belong, make food, clean, do dishes. And that's if individuals want to do that, that's wonderful. But to send the messaging that is where a woman's place is in the world is terrifying to me. It's terrifying. We are so much more than just kitchen cleaners and cooks. We can do that and then do other things that we also want to do and not just need to do.
Right.
Yeah.
We're whole ass people.
Yep.
Whole ass people with passions, with pains, with imperfections, with doubts, with desires, with dreams, with all of those things. And I think that like a lot of this stemmed from probably, patriarchy, but the Madonna or the whore in religion. And so where is the imperfect woman? Where is the grace for someone to be human and a woman and human and a mother? And this, you got this mama, is like my worst fucking phrase, because to me, it's like, it's the absence of the village. It's like, don't complain.
Yeah, you got this. You can do hard things. That's another one that
it.
bothers me, is we can do hard things. Of course we can, but that doesn't mean we've got to wear the weight of the world on us.
But
that
do we
doesn't
have to?
And someone once brought that up with me in a feisty debate I got. involved with, and which I often find myself doing sometimes, highly political sometimes, but it often revolves around women's rights and women's reproductive rights. And I was saying what I was saying, and she's like, but women can do hard things. Not when it comes to something they don't want to do. If someone does not want to do something,
Or if they don't have the fucking choice.
or if they, that was the point. That was the conversation we were in. And to force people into these positions or these moments in our lives that we might not want, you don't do hard things fully when you don't want to just do them to begin with.
Right. And it feels terrible, and it's
Yes.
not aligned with your purpose. And if you know, I think that this is like one of the biggest things that has gotten me in alignment over the last couple of years is knowing in my body, is this a yes or is this a no?
100%.
And not saying yes to the no's.
Yes.
Not saying yes, and really questioning. And sometimes it is so hard because I'm like deeply empathetic and a people pleaser. So how do I say no when I know someone else wants me to do that so bad?
I totally
It's like
understand.
building a bicep. You
Yeah.
have to like practice
muscle.
it.
Right.
It's
Yes.
like building a muscle.
Right. No, thank you. Can't do it.
Yeah, and I love when people are like, and no is, I sometimes am almost in a text message where I'm like, sorry, I can't do it. I have this, and then I'm going to list the things I have to do, and it's
to
like,
justify.
I can't
Yeah,
do
no.
it.
That is such a great practice to bring into play, is to just say no without explanation. That doesn't work for me. And can you do this
yes.
instead? Or this doesn't work for me right now.
And I
Let's
also
check in a few weeks.
And I also find the same thing with like accessibility for people, like people getting a hold of us. We have, ever since another form of messaging came about, when I think it was like Facebook messaging, because after we had our phones, then we had emails, and then it was like Facebook messaging. Now it's Instagram messaging. Now there are 50 apps that someone can contact you on, and if you can't get a hold of that, or if you can't respond back in 3 minutes,
It's like a sense of urgency,
Yes,
and then it causes anxiety.
Exactly. And now I'm at the point where I'm like, thank you for your patience, for me getting back to you. Instead of, I am so sorry I could not get back. Well, why? What the fuck am I sorry about?
Yeah.
Like I've got a lot going on in life, and your 50th message is, it's not going
Not
to
the top of my list,
Yes.
sweetie.
I was raised by my dad, super entrepreneurial, super type A, and got a lot of great lessons about tenacity from him. But he was like looking at my phone, he's like, how do you have 23,000 unread emails? And I was like, you know why? Because I let it go. I used to be an inbox zero person.
Not me.
And that was really important. And we're not talking like my professional email.
You get your clients and you're like, no wonder
You're
why
talking
she
about
has
your Yahoo account.
Yeah. I mean, but I'm not net zero there either.
Yes.
And some
that's okay.
days it's worse than others. But like I am just one person. I can only accomplish so much.
Totally.
And
Again, no
that's-
one's going to die.
And it's all going to work out. And if it is urgent, they're going to send me another note
Totally.
and bump it. Or they're going to know that they can pick up the phone, and I will screen the call and then look at the voicemail transcript as it comes in and then get back to you.
Exactly.
But all of those things, and we are allowed to have that agency to set some of those boundaries because it's healthy and it's important, and it's the only way you can get some peace. But I'm curious about how your relationships with other people have changed as you have sort of created these boundaries and a cozier lifestyle of adopting the art of not giving a fuck.
I think that Michelle and I can both say that sometimes people support our decisions when we draw boundaries or say like, no, I'm not going to do this, and some people get like kind of miffed by them. Like for Mother's Day, I did my own thing. I took myself to dinner. I went on a walk. I took myself for a massage, and my husband and Luna went to my in-laws' home. My mom's dead. Like I celebrated her how I wanted to, and I wanted to do my own thing. I don't know how everyone felt about that. And I also was like, and it's okay for me not to know. It's okay for me to just do my own thing. I think that the good side, the good aspect that comes out of, having these boundaries is that you're being really honest with people, and you're asking people just to respect your time, respect what you want to do, which isn't always easy to achieve. I think because people have expectations from you. They want you to do the things that they want you to do.
That's
and
it.
you're like, no, I don't want to.
Yep.
and
And it's so hard balancing that. That's my kryptonite.
you just have to not give a shit. You really have to care less.
That's what it comes down to. When I made some shifts and I made some adjustments in my previous career, and I started to pull back and start to gain some independence and, just agency in myself, I noticed a bit of a pushback there. I was letting some people down because there were some changes and I wasn't available, or I was communicating that this wasn't going to work for me in this moment, but this could work for me, but I'm going to give you a different time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And what I also noticed in my marriage and in my personal life, it improved because what my husband saw was, instead of a burning, fucking mad, pissed off, exhausted woman, what he started to see was his wife become whole again and started to become more of a reasoning, like I just wasn't reactive. I was there. I was present. I wasn't flippant. I wasn't losing my shit. I wasn't running out the door and having conversations with him as we were passing like ships in the night. And that leveled. And I feel like in that space, our relationship has gotten, it's better than it ever was, because let me tell you, when it was bad and I was struggling, our relationship was probably at its worst. So
Wow.
There were some flips though, because when you start to change and pull back and do stuff for yourself, there's people in the, outside that are feeling
Hooting and
that
hollering.
shift. They're feeling the shift.
Right.
So that was hard, but I also was very empowering because I was like, okay.
And as you could stand in your power, then I'm sure that you reminded your husband of who you
Yes.
are. And then that probably
That's sexy.
that's a turn on. And then that positive reinforcement helps you to continue
Yep.
to stand in your power.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think that's a huge takeaway for the patriarchy is
Yeah.
you get more sex.
When
you get more
sex, honey.
You get sex, more appreciation,
Yep.
more love, more
Fun,
peace,
time,
when you let
energy.
the woman be her whole ass self.
Yes.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Seriously, yes.
Mic drop. Punch
Yeah.
off.
The end.
The benefits are, it might be scary to have to put
It
the kids
is.
to bed once in a while. Might be scary
Who? For who?
For the fella,
for the fella.
for
For the fella. And
She-
then they
she-
can step up into it.
I think another thing that we
I
talked.
like how you both were like, for
yeah,
who?
I'm like, for who? Because,
Yeah.
well, for me,
You set the standard day one in your
I
marriage.
had to, because listen, again, I saw a lot of people have children before me, and
Yes.
a lot of like, oh, my husband doesn't know how to feed them or bathe them. I'm like, well, what the fuck are you doing having kids with someone who's incapable of having kids with you? That's just how I look at it. And, as judgy as that might sound, he's not incapable, or whoever they are, not incapable. It's about, are you asking? Are you demanding? Are you saying, hey, I'm going to go take a yoga class. You're doing bedtime tonight. Because if
Right.
you don't do that, you're going to be exhausted. And we need exercise. We need nature. We need to do things for ourselves that feed our souls and that are like brain health, physical health, beneficial to us.
Because it's all
Not
connected.
just making lunches and putting the kid to bed and reading stories. And to have a healthy relationship exempt of resentment, I think it takes two to tango. If in regards to parenting, it really, and I know I'm somewhat newer at this, I'm only 2 years in, and I will say that Anthony and I we've had a solid foundation for quite some time now. So bringing in a kid was, how is it going to work? But we set some, standards for each other and expectations from the get-go. Oh, what was I watching? I was watching, maybe it was a TikTok. Someone's like, be mindful of who you have a child with. Don't marry someone just to marry someone. Marry someone if you plan on having children with them, and what they're going to be like as a father and
Yeah.
a partner to you, because it's not a one-woman job. It is hard.
It is hard.
It is so hard. I only have one. I'm only having one.
I have one of my best friends. She got married a little bit later, and I remember she relayed a story to me that her husband, or like after they got married, he said something like, "Okay, what's the honey-do list?" And she goes,
The what list?
honey-do
"The honey-do list."
Like his list of
He's like, "What's my
tasks.
list of shit to do?" And she goes,
Honey-do list.
She goes, "Look the fuck around. You see something that needs to get done, you do it.
Totally.
That's how this
And
shit
that's
works."
how- yes.
And I was like, and I'm so proud of this friend for so many reasons. She could have settled a million times for worse partners, and she held out, and now she's got 2 beautiful kids and an
And a
equal
voice, clearly.
partnership and a
Full partner.
voice.
Yeah.
And
Love her.
in a perfectly pleasant way, just set this boundary. And boundaries are so healthy. Like dogs need them, babies need them, partners need them, friends need them,
Sisters, everything.
Everyone, we need to set boundaries because it shows people how we can show up best,
Absolutely.
how they can show up best for us. in life. And also, it's really important.
I love this honey-do list. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, well,
That's a sweet sentiment for just get it the fuck done.
I love that.
yeah. How about this? I'm not going to put
How about
together.
this?
So you want me
Do
to
something.
go ahead, look around, and create a list of all of the things that need to be done, and give it to you as if I am in charge of you.
You know-
no, use your eyeballs.
Listen,
come up with it too.
We're all daughters of a generation before us that just watched the mom, and I'm going to speak from our own perspective and experience, watched our mom do everything, right? And we could either go with that and keep that momentum going, that momentum that is an ass kicker and a burnout kind of momentum, or you can flip the script and change your destiny and change how you function in a household.
And change how your house, show of hands, who clears the plates at the family dinner parties?
Don't even get me
don't
started.
even. I will break this microphone in half. Right
Tell me about this, because
Well, you know the answer to the
I
question
know the
you're
answer.
asking.
If you are one of the people who is just sitting there while the women clear the plates, you're part of a generational problem.
Absolutely.
Get the fuck up and clear the plates.
Absolutely.
And you know what? You might have a nice conversation with your grandmother while you're doing it, or someone else. And okay, so I want to say something, and it dawns on me. Luna was in your mom's body.
Yes.
Because she was, as you grew in your mom, your eggs were already part.
100%. Yep.
And when we think about the circle of
So crazy.
matriarch,
Yeah.
and what we're passing down and what we have agency over, and how much gratitude that I have and think about for how hard it must have been for our moms and their moms
Yes.
to not have a voice. And I know we give them
No
shit about
voice.
previous feminist movements and how far they came and what rights they didn't or didn't have, but every bit of incremental change that these women make it possible for our daughters and granddaughters to have a different experience, to be whole ass people, and I'm not saying that there aren't roles that are great for women, and maybe we are making the food together, and that providership is something that is helpful or something that should be celebrated. Serving, that can be celebrated, but when it becomes servant and not acknowledged and not recognized,
Absolutely,
that's when
Ashley.
the burnout comes.
That's when the burnout comes.
Because we cannot just go through life not being celebrated, and that expectation. And I think that is where the burnout comes from, where you're like, what the fuck am I doing this for?
Yeah, why?
No one fucking cares.
Exactly.
No one cares. And then where are we being met so that we can then celebrate someone? Because that's an important piece too.
There's the episode of The Bear. I don't know if you watched The Bear.
I did see that Calvin Klein photo shoot.
Oh my
though.
God. I mean,
So those damn eyes he's got. They
he
get
is
me every
so,
time.
so good looking. I
What a
can't. I
cutie.
cannot.
It's darling.
He's more than cutie. Anyways, Jamie Lee Curtis plays the mom. I'm not that thirsty, but maybe no. Jamie Lee Curtis plays his mom in one of the season episodes or finales, and she portrayed this incredible. I mean, not only she's also drinking heavily, but she's portraying what a burnout on a holiday looks like, and she loses her mind. And I feel like it's very reminiscent to probably a lot of households on Christmas morning when the mom is hosting and dad's watching a football game. And I think it is our job to reverse how these things look so that the women behind us that are coming after us will pick partners too who want to stand up more equal with them.
Yes.
Instead of be like, bitch, go give me my meatloaf.
I think something that I found, and it took me a while to learn this too, was communicating in what I needed made a big difference. When I sat and festered in my own misery and just ruminated over the stuff that pissed me off every minute of every day, I was on a bad path.
Yep.
But then when I learned and realized that if I ask for things and point out what I need, because in some instances, unfortunately, everybody's learning.
Yes.
Okay.
And people aren't omniscient.
Okay. Yes.
So-
I have a partner who has always been a co-partner. He is certainly not the cook in my family. I worry that if I get hit by a bus, they will all die of malnutrition.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a real worry.
It is a real concern, and I'm fear. They will die
I
of
followed you for a while. I see your recipes.
They will die.
Yeah, they're good.
Of
Yeah.
sodium bloat. I don't know what was from ramen and frozen pizzas.
Cheerios.
But literally,
They're like 15.
seriously. But there was also some sort of magic that happened when I stood in my when we came on this quest to right the ship, or else I was going to have to go to a rest home. And I started asking for things and started laying some things out. And then slowly it shifted into more of like it was always a good partnership, and it wasn't an imbalance in my house per se. It was more an imbalance in my own life and career. Do you follow what I'm saying? And the path that I chose ended up not being the path that I needed. It wasn't right for me. But when those things changed, when I started to communicate more and just say and ask and point stuff out, then it became second nature. And that's why I also think like our relationship improved so much, because there was a true okay, we're going to shift. She's not just shifting. We're all kind of shifting around here.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that's so beautiful though.
It was hard. And there were a lot of tears and a lot of sad days, a lot of feeling lost and really angry. But
having the courage to speak your truth is, I think, one of the core tenets of building true love, bliss, pleasure in life. Mm-hmm. And it's hard.
It is.
It is hard because, especially if you're worried about letting someone else down,
totally,
and how they're going to react to something, and then how they're going to perceive you. And it's hard. It's really hard to, and when you are speaking your truth and that's not being met, knowing that then you have a decision to make about how you're going forward with or without someone. And that's hard too, but there's beauty in the burn down. And I think that there's so many positive things that can happen from having the courage to say, this isn't it anymore. And this isn't the path that's going to lead to your happiness. And then also recognizing how that impacts your kids. And then giving everyone in your household permission to show up as their full self.
Yes.
All of a sudden, there's not that resistance.
Because resistance meets resistance.
Yes.
When you're bringing that's what you're meeting.
Yep.
Yeah. 100%. It really does feel like taking a big old breath for the first time. Like the ribs can actually expand when you do it. And the cool thing about it is when you talk about these things, and because we have a platform and we've shared these things, you start to hear that you aren't the only one that's going through this and feels like this. And as it turns out, a lot of people feel the exact same way. And they are inspired and excited by the idea that there are people out there modeling it and saying it and taking the risk. And then people writing us and saying I did this because you showed me that I could, made it less scary. It's scary as hell, but can do it.
Okay. So if you guys had to put together a short list of what are 3 to 5 things that someone can do right now who's experiencing burnout to get off the fucking hamster wheel.
Go to the woods.
Michelle loves the woods.
Go to the woods.
I like the woods too.
That's a real quick, easy
Connect
one.
with nature.
Just get
connect
outside,
with nature.
Leave the phone or put it in your pocket and put it on silent and go take a walk. I always say I never go into the woods. I never come out of the woods feeling the same way I did when I go in. If I'm feeling bad, I always feel better.
I would say no to the things that aren't working for you. Say no and prioritize your mental health, because usually if you're suffering from burnout, you're probably exhibiting and experiencing stress and anxiety. Yeah. And maybe you need someone to talk to that will help you make these next healthy steps in your life or changes, because there is a lot of fear that comes with change, so much fear. And I think that if you get the right tools and the encouragement from an outside source, that can help along the way. And girl time.
And getting off social media.
Oh yeah, social media is a real ass kicker.
You can file social media under the caring less part, because that's the thing that is driving, I think, so many bad feelings. You're in a state of burnout, you're feeling bad about yourself, you're kind of tired, you're not feeling good, and then you go on social media and you go and check out everybody's highlight reel, everybody's fake life, everybody's image.
Everyone's
the deception
really well on
of
social
perfection, that's not going to help your cause. And how do you do that? By giving 2 fucks about what they're doing and turning that stuff off.
Yeah.
And I also think one other thing too is to find something you love doing.
Reconnecting with your
whatever it might be, even if it's something new.
Whatever.
I decided to take up archery because I've always been into archery. I want to do fencing. I want to dress up as a drag queen. I have such a big bucket list.
Yes.
And I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to do the drag queen part. But once you
Pride
start,
parade's in a couple.
I know. I have a couple friends who are trying to help me out with this. I just have a vision. But imagine, daydream, think about the things you want to do, whether it's a trip or it's archery or you want to go and have dinner with your best friend, whatever it is, that has to be prioritized.
Oh my gosh, I think about the feeling of like, okay, what is the thing that lights you up? Think back to the last time that you felt super good, happy, connected. What were you doing? And so whether that is friends, whether that is a dinner out or a walk or when you took an art class, and then chase that.
Yes.
Because that is the path of towards happiness, towards finding your purpose, or to just like feeling complete. And so for me, I played music my whole life.
I didn't know that, Ashley. What'd you play? Piano,
guitar, singing
Cool.
was, I'm going to join the band.
Oh my God, which I like, that is, you should come and sit in with the pigs.
I mean, I would. For those of you
don't
who
even
don't know,
know.
Michelle is in a cover band called
The Pigs.
The Pigs.
They're
The
awesome.
Pigs.
They're so good.
And so like and for whatever reason, I think that society kind of like beat it out of me, but I like was in the choir in college and I
Yes.
like went to school in Tennessee because I like sort of was like, maybe I'll get, maybe some point
Nashville.
I'll pursue this. But then people are like, well, what are you going to do with that? And it's like, there's so much space. I've said this a million times between like karaoke and Beyonce.
What are you gonna do
Like,
with that?
What are you going to do with
there's
this?
so
and it's like, we
much.
have to capitalize
Why do
our
we have to
passions.
capitalize on
No,
everything?
you could just have fun.
And why can't you just like do it because you just love it?
Exactly.
And that why if I was singing every Saturday at Potbelly, that someone would be like, is she okay? Instead of being like, she's just doing what she loves. And so I sort of got away from it because I didn't have an outlet for it. And then really like pandemic era, I was like, where is the music? Where is the music in my life? How have I actually got super, and a part of this was too when I had kids and I would like sing to them and remember that I would like make up these little songs. But bringing music back to my life has been one of the things where it's like, I like ride around on a jet ski at like our lake house or anyone's lake house and any jet ski and just be like, like I would do like any singing possible.
Well, and it
I love Make it up.
raises the vibe too.
Raises the vibe, and sound is important. But in any event, like those passions matter, and we're so self-conscious in our society.
But I also think that what happens is when we get so beaten down and when we're so burned out, we can't even begin to think about what it is we used to be passionate about
What did we used to
until
love?
we create the space. And that in the space,
Yes.
that's the sweet spot.
That's
That's
the
where,
space.
so when you start peeling off the layers and saying no and prioritizing yourself and giving less fucks and all of those things, all of a sudden it's like whispers. It's like you hear it. You're like,
can listen.
you are starting to wake up. It's
Yes.
like almost like a spirit. It is like a
It is
spiritual awakening.
It very much is.
And
Yes.
so that's why the space part and
It
doing all
matters.
those things up front.
I remember when I was making the transition, I started one of my early jobs was a tenant rep office broker in commercial real estate. And it was like a super hardcore 100% commission job. And I knew that I wanted to be in a creative space. And I was going out like 7 days a week. I
Oh, yeah.
loved to party.
Do you, Ashley?
I love
I didn't know you're a little partier. What do we party? Like how?
I was
like at
I
bars,
just very
raves.
social.
What are we talking about?
Very,
here?
You strike
very
me as a
social.
very social
very
person.
social person. Like I just loved to have plans.
Fun.
And
And back in the 20s, we could not in not
yeah,
the
you're talking
20s,
about, like,
our
in not
20s.
the
You could do it.
1920s.
Yeah, you
in
could,
our 20s, like we could do it. Like you had no kids, could just make plans
Yes.
whenever I wanted. And so I created space. Like I was like, I am not going out more than 3 days a week. And I spent those other 4 nights like painting, really just like
Really?
tuning in and just like, okay, went to Bic Art Supplies
Yeah.
or Blick and then
Blick.
and got a bunch of shit and painted and it was great and planned some trips where I could just kind of like, okay, I need to be inspired. And so finding those windows of inspiration so you can hear the whisper
That's
that
it.
says like, hey, maybe you should go to grad school for journalism and start a marketing agency.
But you've heard it.
Wait, but I've never worked at a marketing agency before. Why would I start one?
That's like
Okay.
that's kind of how the sister project.
message. Okay.
That's kind of how
Right.
the sister project was born.
That's
is
it.
I was I was done feeling the bads and honing in on that, and I started to open myself up to the idea of change. And that was like when I started to hear the word sister, and I didn't know what it was or what it was supposed to be, but I was so drawn to my sister and figuring out how we could create a space together, and that's what it was born out of, that space for the first time.
Wow.
Yeah.
That it's so vital.
It
So
is.
vital. I agree with you. I think that the first step for anyone who's experiencing massive burnout is to create space to listen. And maybe that is just taking a walk in nature without your phone. Maybe that is just like, I love to burn shit. I'm a total
Hell yes.
fire
Are we
witch.
burning
Like,
paper? Are we burning palo? What are we burning?
Cannabis.
Joints?
wood, all of it.
Tell me
I burn palos, sage,
Yes, all
make
of the
fires
above.
outside in my
Yes.
backyard.
Just don't burn your eyelashes.
A dog
It's the worst.
walker.
Done that.
Big fat blunt, whatever.
Yeah,
It's
Ashley, I
fine.
could see the big blonde. Like
I do. Because you can't see it. I have a giant, blunty looking microphone in front of me.
You lead to do nothing. The
to do
doing
nothing, to create
thing.
the space to just do nothing,
Yes.
and then get the creative whispers, and then from there you create the space to kind of follow your path and find happiness, joy,
It's there.
whatever. It's there.
Whatever it is, it's there.
So before we wrap up, I have a question for you both individually.
I always get nervous about these.
It's my favorite part, and I'm bummed we're wrapping up. But go ahead.
I know, me too.
always.
I'm going to start with Lauren.
Okay.
What are you doing to live unapologetically?
Oh, gosh. Okay. I have mentioned here that I am a big advocate for women's rights and healthcare, and I do take the opportunity to talk about it as often as I can with whoever I can and help people understand in a very kind and compassionate way where I am coming from. I also post a lot on my personal handle about how I feel about that. I feel like it's so important and it's vital to our wellness that we are taken care of by society, and I feel aren't. I don't think we're held tenderly. I feel like we are disposed of. I hear a lot from older women that they feel like they're invisible come 60. And I think that we don't take enough effort in caring for women. And it's really important because we are such a complex organism and we go through so many different shifts in our lifetime that we do not learn about. And I'm not just talking about like having a choice with your body. That's the top. But I'm also just talking about like educating ourselves.
Yes.
I didn't know that you had to have a certain time to get pregnant when I was trying to get pregnant. I thought you just have sex and figure it out.
Same.
I had no idea. No idea.
It would have made my 20s a lot less stressful.
It would have made things same. And I suffered from symptoms of endometriosis and was silenced for 20 years. I think as women, we just have so much to offer the world. And if we had a little bit more grace from others outside of just our units, that we can flourish, and the world is our oyster. We could do whatever we want, but we definitely have to have the support from everyone. We just are kind of left out to just figure it out.
Yeah.
Our system is super flawed, and I unapologetically speak about it because being a woman and now being a mom and seeing it from another perspective,
One of the things I like to say is like, I don't know a single woman I wouldn't trust to make a decision about her own body.
I mean,
And
I
we
don't
have-
understand
and
how
we
that's
have
a
Kim-
I
there is
just
question.
don't understand
space
how it's
that has, like,
even a topic.
How have but we've created so much mistrust among humans.
Yes.
Yep.
That there's this other. There is no other. It's you. It's me. It's
Right.
It's like so.
Yeah.
I'm
That's
with you,
I mean,
and I appreciate the content that you share around it.
Thank
and,
you.
and
It
I
really
think it's
angers
huge.
me
Yeah.
because we have to do better for one another, and we have to be a support for one another.
Well, so much wisdom has been lost about women, and I'm going to do a
Where
whole
is it?
episode. Well, because the truth is that everything we learned about being a woman, we learned from a man.
Uh-huh.
And now I think we are here on this planet at this time to take back,
it back.
our knowledge and then teach it to our granddaughters. And so we're the ancestors we needed.
Love it.
And we have the support of all of the women who came before us to bring this wisdom to life. That's what I truly believe. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Shame that.
I'm gonna go in a little bit of a different direction than Lauren, and go inward, I always say that, it's our birthright. It's like this thing when we are born as women that we have to care for someone. We care for a person, an animal, a parent, a child. We are a caregiver to somebody. And I am unapologetically being selfish and prioritizing me and what's best for me so I can show up first for myself and then for everybody else, instead of showing up for everybody else and being just a quarter of who I am today. Like I think that women need permission. They need more people to say, they don't need the permission. They should fricking go do it, but they're looking for it. And they're saying, I didn't know that I could do that. I didn't even know that it was an option. I didn't know that I could be a mother without guilt. I don't need to feel bad about not going to a baseball game so I could prioritize myself for a minute. And whether that looks like going and doing something or doing absolutely nothing, that is what I am unapologetically trying to share with the world.
You are the hero that you were waiting for.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well
Love
done.
it.
I love that. Thank you so much. This has been an absolute blast and a joy and a
You have
delight.
no
And I know
idea.
that we could
Thank
talk
you for
all
having
day.
us.
So where can people find you?
So on Instagram, it's at the Sister Proj with a J at the end. On all podcast streaming apps, it's Cozy Conversations with the Sister Project. What am I missing? We sell candles. Because there's nothing cozier than a good fucking candle. So our candles are available at the sisterprojectblog.com at our shop that is located there. There's a new website coming, so stay tuned.
And did you share Cozy Conversations with the Sister Project is streamable everywhere? Did you
I
say that?
totally said
oh,
that.
wow.
You
I had
blacked
an
out.
ADHD,
That's okay.
I had an ADHD
That's
blackout.
okay. You double
about
down
that.
Do
on
you
that
have that?
one.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I have them when we record and then I listen to our podcast again. I'm like, I don't remember that part of the conversation. And sometimes it's apparent in my response.
But that's where you can find us on all the
Yeah.
apps and whatnot.
Awesome. And I'm going to share it in the show notes.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. You guys are the best. And by the way, you are truly celebrities. Like people come up and they're like,
listen.
wait, you know Lauren and Michelle? And I'm like, I do.
Actually, I've always wanted to be a celebrity.
I know Lauren and Michelle.
I always wanted to be a celebrity.
Well, you are.
Is the paparazzi outside? Because I can get a hood and hide
Oh God, that's like
behind
sounds
it.
like my absolute hell.
Oh, I would love it.
I would throw
I'd be
myself
like,
in
oh
the
my God,
bush.
hey,
You go hide in the
guys.
woods.
I would.
I would love it. I'd be like, what's up?
Not me.
Thank you so much for tuning in
Ashley.
today.
Thanks,
We're so
Ashley.
grateful. And until then, I am Ashley Logan here with Lauren and Michelle, and we are Unapologetically Yours. Thank you so much for tuning in. Go out, make some mischief in the world. And until then, I'm Ashley, and I'm unapologetically yours.